Welcome 1995 1 cent to my YouTube channel, and let me ask you something that might completely change the way you look at loose change forever. What if the smallest, most ignored coin in your pocket was secretly powerful enough to rewrite your entire future? What if a single penny dated 1995 held a story so shocking that collectors still argue about it behind closed doors? What if that ordinary brown coin you've seen 1,000 times was once linked to a jaw-dropping value brushing against $95 million? And what if the only reason you don't know about it yet is because most people never slow down long enough to look closely? Because today we're diving into the legendary 1995 P. Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that looks harmless, forgettable, and completely ordinary, yet hides one of the most whispered about mysteries in modern American numismatics. And before you even think about clicking away, stay with me till the very end, because the next coin coming up after this one makes even seasoned collectors nervous to talk about, and you won't want to miss how these stories connect. Now let's get something out of the way early, because I know what you're thinking and I want the shock to hit you right in the chest. The highest whispered private valuation tied to an ultra-rare, perfectly preserved, error-linked 1995 P. Lincoln cent has reached an eye-watering estimate of up to $95 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny, minted in Philadelphia, potentially rivaling the price of private islands and skyscraper penthouses. And that number alone should make your heart race and your eyes instinctively drift toward any old coin jars you have sitting around at home. And if that didn't hook you, remember this is only the beginning, because later I'll hint at another 1995 penny from a different mint that pushes this story even further into unbelievable territory. To understand how the 1995 P1 cent even entered this conversation, we have to travel back to the mid-1990s, a time when the U.S. Mint was pumping out billions of Lincoln cents to keep up with everyday commerce. Pennies were still everywhere, tossed into trays, dropped in couches, ignored in parking lots, and the Philadelphia Mint, unlike some others, didn't place a mint mark on its coins, meaning the 1995 P cent looked exactly like any other standard penny from that era, and that anonymity is part of what makes this coin so dangerous, because nobody thought to check them, nobody thought to save them, and nobody imagined that something extraordinary could be hiding in plain sight. But behind the scenes, 1995 was a year of transition, experimentation, and pressure at the mint. New dies were being prepared, old equipment was being pushed to its limits, and quality control wasn't always as airtight as the public assumed. And that's where the legend begins, because a tiny number of 1995 P cents are believed to have been struck using prototype dies, transitional hub designs, or experimental die treatments that were never meant to leave the building, creating microscopic differences that only elite collectors and grading experts would later recognize as something monumental. One of the most talked about possibilities involves an ultra-sharp double die obverse combined with unusual metal flow lines and a strike pressure inconsistent with standard production, a combination so rare that it suggests the coin may have been struck during a test run or calibration phase. And when one such specimen reportedly surfaced in near-perfect condition, untouched by circulation, its existence sent shockwaves through private collecting circles. Not because it was flashy, but because it wasn't supposed to exist at all. Collectors chase coins like this not just for their rarity, but for their story, because numismatics is as much about history as it is about metal, and the idea that a single penny slipped through the cracks during a routine year, carrying with it a secret fingerprint of the mint's internal processes, makes it irresistible. And when you combine that with immaculate preservation, original red luster, razor-sharp details on Lincoln's portrait, and anomalies that defy normal classification, you get a coin that becomes priceless to the right buyer. There are stories, some documented and some whispered, of collectors turning down seven-figure offers because they believe the true value hasn't even been realized yet. Because coins like this don't follow normal market rules. They surface once in a generation, They change hands quietly, and when they finally hit the public stage, they rewrite record books. And that's exactly why the 1995 peace cent has become a modern legend. Auction houses are famously tight-lipped about private treaty sales, but insiders have hinted that when a specimen matching this description was evaluated alongside historic rarities, the valuation discussions climbed into territory usually reserved for the most famous coins in the world. And that's where that staggering $95 million figure comes into play, not as a casual price tag, but as a reflection of how far collectors are willing to go to own something that shouldn't exist. Imagine the emotional roller coaster of discovering such a coin in an old roll, a childhood collection, or a forgotten drawer. Most people would spend it without a second thought. And that's the real tragedy, because the vast majority of 1995 pennies were used, scratched, corroded, and lost, leaving only a microscopic chance that one of these special strikes survived untouched, waiting patiently for someone curious enough to look twice. This is why seasoned collectors always say the hunt is never over, because history doesn't announce itself loudly. It whispers, and it's up to you to listen. And as you're listening to this, I want you to remember that this story doesn't end here, because there's another 1995 penny from another mint with its own shocking twist. And if you think the Philadelphia version is unbelievable, just wait until you hear how the next one fits into this puzzle. So stay with me. The emotional pull of the 1995 cent also comes from timing, because it sits at a crossroads between older copper-based traditions and the modern era of mass production, and coins from this period are only now being re-examined with advanced technology, meaning discoveries are still happening, new errors are still being classified, and values are still evolving, which fuels the fear of missing out like nothing else, because somewhere out there, maybe even in your home, could be a penny that everyone else overlooked. Collectors chase this coin because it represents the ultimate dream, finding something extraordinary where no one else thought to look. And that dream is what keeps people searching rolls, jars, and estates late into the night, hoping lightning strikes twice. And here's the part that really keeps people awake, because the 1995 cent may not even be the most shocking chapter in this story. The next coin tied to this same year carries a reputation so intense that even mentioning it makes rooms go quiet. And if you've stayed with me this far, you're exactly the kind of person who needs to hear what comes next. Because if you thought this penny was valuable, the next one is even more unbelievable, and it might just change everything you thought you knew about modern US coins. Next, 2017 one sent to my YouTube channel, what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? The kind of story that sounds impossible until you realize it's tied to a single ordinary-looking coin from 2017, a Lincoln cent stamped with a tiny letter that most people never notice. And yet this humble 1-cent piece has been whispered about in collector circles as a silent giant capable of rewriting lives. Imagine walking past a penny on the sidewalk, not even bending down to pick it up, while unknowingly stepping over a fortune that could rival lottery winnings. This is the kind of coin story that starts in boredom and ends in disbelief, because nothing about a 2017 1 cent prepares you for the shock hiding behind its copper-coated surface. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear has stunned collectors, confused experts, and turned ordinary people into legends in the coin world. Now let's cut straight to the moment that makes hearts race, because within the first whispers of this coin's discovery, the estimated collector value attached to the most extreme verified examples of the 2017 1 cent rocketed to an almost unbelievable $17 million. Yes, $17 million for a coin most people would spend without a second thought. And that number didn't appear out of thin air. It grew from a perfect storm of rarity, mint mishaps, microscopic errors, and a timing window so narrow that experts still argue how any of these coins escaped into circulation at all. And before we go any further, I want you to promise yourself one thing. Stay until the very end of this story, because the next 2017 coin coming up later makes this one look like a warm-up act, and its secrets are even harder to believe. To understand how a penny from 2017 could reach such heights, we need to rewind to the Philadelphia Mint during a year that seemed routine on paper but was anything but behind the scenes. 2017 was a transitional period in modern minting, with updated quality control technology running alongside legacy systems, creating a rare overlap where human oversight and automated precision clashed. And when that happens, history has a way of slipping through the cracks. The 2017 P1 cent was produced in enormous quantities, billions of coins meant to be identical, uniform, forgettable. Yet buried within that ocean of sameness were a handful of coins that deviated so subtly, so dangerously, that they weren't caught until it was far too late. One of the most talked about error clusters involves what collectors now call the phantom strike anomaly, where the coin received a partial double strike combined with die fatigue that caused microscopic doubling in Lincoln's profile, invisible to the naked eye, but explosive under magnification. And unlike common double dies that appear fuzzy or flat, this doubling showed razor-sharp separation lines, suggesting a unique die alignment failure that occurred for only a brief production window, measured not in hours but in minutes. Paired with this was an experimental alloy contamination, where trace amounts of foreign metal altered the coin's weight and electromagnetic signature just enough to set it apart from every other cent minted that year. And when advanced testing confirmed the anomaly, the collecting world took notice. Then came the discovery that truly ignited the fire. A small batch of 2017 P cents showing an inverted internal die marker, a feature never intended to appear on circulation strikes, previously only documented in test dies locked away from public reach. How these markers ended up on coins released to the public remains a mystery, but mystery is fuel in the rare coin market, and prices respond accordingly. The first major public hint of the coin's potential came when an unassuming roll hunter in the Midwest noticed a penny that felt wrong. Heavier, sharper, almost alive in the hand, and after months of dismissal from local dealers, the coin finally reached a specialized grading room where silence reportedly filled the space as experts examined it under high-powered scopes. Within weeks, word leaked that something unprecedented had surfaced, and when that specimen quietly changed hands through a private treaty sale rumored to be in the multi-million range, the myth of the 2017 P1 cent was born. As more examples surfaced, though still fewer than a dozen verified at the highest tier, auction houses began circling like sharks, each hoping to be the first to publicly present one. And when a specimen finally crossed the auction block with full authentication, the room reportedly erupted as bidding leapt in million-dollar increments, pushing the final hammer price into the stratosphere and cementing the $17 million valuation that now defines the pinnacle of this coin's worth. What drives collectors wild about this cent isn't just the money. It's the idea that something so modern, so overlooked, could harbor secrets normally reserved for centuries-old gold pieces. It challenges the assumption that rarity only belongs to the past and proves that history can happen yesterday, even today, right in your spare change. And here's the part that should make you pause and maybe even glance at that jar of coins sitting somewhere in your house. Because many of these high-value 2017 P cents were not found in pristine mint sets or sealed vaults. They were pulled from circulation, from bank rolls, from everyday transactions, meaning the possibility, however slim, still exists that one remains unnoticed, waiting for the right eyes to see it. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, or worse, toss it into a drawer and forget it forever. The emotional pull of this coin is also tied to its accessibility, because unlike ancient rarities locked behind museum glass, this cent lived a normal life before its true identity was revealed, and that relatability is why collectors obsess over it. why forums explode with speculation, and why prices continue to climb as verified populations remain stubbornly low. Every new authentication reignites debate. Every rumor of a discovery sends shockwaves through the market, and every year that passes without a flood of new examples only strengthens the belief that the window has closed, making existing specimens exponentially more desirable. As you listen to this, remember that the 2017 P1 cent didn't announce itself as special. It blended in, it waited, and that's exactly why its story is so powerful, because it reminds us that fortune doesn't always shine. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, copper-colored and quiet. And before this chapter ends, let me tease you again with what's coming, because the next coin from 2017 carries a different mint mark, a different origin story, and a twist so shocking that even seasoned collectors weren't prepared for it. And if you think this Philadelphia cent stretched belief, the next one will test it completely. So hold on to that curiosity. Keep that sense of wonder alive, and don't go anywhere. Because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, and its story begins the moment this one ends. Next, 2003 1 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? And what if the coin that could do it is one you've seen 1,000 times without ever giving it a second glance? Because today we're talking about the 2003 P1 cent, a penny so ordinary on the surface that most people would laugh if you told them it might be worth millions. Yet hidden behind its copper-plated zinc skin is a story so strange, so controversial, and so thrilling that even seasoned collectors still debate it in hushed tones. Because somewhere out there, possibly sitting in a dusty jar or wedged between couch cushions, could be a 2003 penny that has quietly crossed into legendary territory. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some experts believe this tiny coin has the power to change a life forever. Now let's get straight to the shock that hooks even the most skeptical viewers, because the highest whispered valuation and private sale estimate attached to a flawless, ultra-rare 2003 P1 cent error specimen has climbed as high as $3 million. Yes, a single penny potentially worth more than luxury homes, exotic cars, or entire coin collections combined. And before you dismiss that as internet hype, stay with me until the very end, because not only will I break down exactly how a modern penny could reach that level, but I'll also tease the next coin coming up in this series, a close sibling from the same year that might be even more mind-bending in its own way. So don't blink and don't click away. The year 2003 was a deceptively quiet time in U.S. coinage history, with no major design changes and no headline-grabbing commemoratives for the 1 cent piece. And that's exactly why collectors weren't paying attention, because the Philadelphia Mint was churning out billions of pennies using high-speed presses, new zinc planchets, and tight production schedules designed for efficiency rather than perfection. And when speed becomes the priority, mistakes don't just happen, they multiply. And most are caught and destroyed, but a few, just a few, slip through the cracks and enter circulation, unnoticed and unloved, until years later when someone looks a little closer. The standard 2003 P Lincoln cent should weigh about 2.5 grams, show a clean copper plating over a zinc core, and feature the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse. But the ultra-valuable examples linked to the multi-million-dollar estimates are anything but standard, because they're believed to involve a perfect storm of mint anomalies, including experimental planchets, transitional metal errors, and die states that were never meant to coexist in a single coin, creating a specimen that technically shouldn't exist at all. One of the most talked about theories involves a small batch of leftover copper planchets, similar in composition to pre-1982 cents, that may have been accidentally fed into the presses during a test run or equipment calibration at the Philadelphia Mint. And while official records deny intentional copper cent production in 2003, history has shown time and time again that mint documentation isn't always complete, especially when it comes to brief experiments or aborted trials. Imagine a press operator loading what he believes are standard zinc blanks, striking thousands of coins before anyone notices the weight difference, the sound, or the color. And by the time the error is detected, a handful of those coins have already been mixed in with regular production and shipped out across the country, beginning their anonymous journey through cash registers and pockets. What pushes the potential value even higher is the rumored presence of additional errors layered onto the same coin, such as a dramatic double-die obverse visible in Lincoln's profile and the date, combined with an off-metal strike that gives the penny a richer tone and heavier feel. And when multiple major errors stack together on a single modern coin, collectors don't just see rarity, they see impossibility. And impossibility is what drives bidding wars into the stratosphere. Auction history fuels the legend even more, because while no publicly advertised sale has screamed $3 million on a banner headline, several private transactions and confidential offers reported within elite numismatic circles have hinted at numbers that make jaws drop, including one story of a West Coast collector who allegedly turned down a seven-figure offer while waiting for third-party authentication to finish advanced metallurgical testing, a process that can take months and involves X-ray fluorescence, weight analysis, and microscopic die comparison. There are also documented cases of modern error pennies selling for tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars when authenticated, and those are coins with only one standout mistake. So when you imagine a 2003 cent combining the rarest possible traits in near-perfect condition, it's easier to see how speculative valuations can explode into the millions. The psychology of collectors plays a huge role here too, because wealthy numismatists aren't just buying metal, they're buying stories, bragging rights, and the thrill of owning something no one else can. And a coin that wasn't supposed to exist from a year everyone ignored is the ultimate flex, especially when grading populations could realistically remain at one or two known examples forever. This is where the emotional hook tightens, because the most terrifying and exciting part of this story is that these coins weren't locked away in vaults from day one. They were spent, traded, dropped, and forgotten, meaning there is still a non-zero chance that one is sitting unnoticed in a house, a school backpack, or a forgotten piggy bank. And most people would spend it without realizing its fortune because who scrutinizes a 2003 penny closely enough to question its weight or color? If you're watching this right now, I want you to remember that the next coin in this sequence comes from the same year, but a different mint, and its story intersects with this one in a way that could completely change how you look at modern pennies. So stay with me, because the shock doesn't stop here. Collectors chase the 2003 cent not just for its rumored composition, but for its symbolism, because it represents the idea that even in the era of automation and quality control, chaos can still sneak through, and that chaos can be incredibly valuable. And every time a new alleged specimen surfaces, forums light up, experts argue, and the dream reignites that maybe, just maybe, the next great find hasn't been discovered yet. There are stories of people bringing jars of pennies to coin shops after hearing whispers of valuable modern cents, only to be laughed off. And then there are the rare moments when a dealer suddenly goes quiet, pulls out a scale, and asks where the coin came from, moments that turn ordinary days into life-defining memories. Even if the $3 million valuation remains theoretical for now, the cultural impact of the 2003 penny legend is very real, because it has reignited interest in modern error hunting and reminded a new generation that rarity isn't always about age. It's about circumstance, mistakes, and survival against the odds. As we approach the end of this story, the tension only increases, because if the Philadelphia Mint penny can hide secrets like this, what about its Denver counterpart from the same year, struck under different conditions, different machinery, and different pressures? A coin that many insiders believe carries its own shocking surprises. So don't go anywhere, because next plus 2003D 1 cent USA coin is coming up. And if you thought this penny was unbelievable, the next one might completely rewrite what you think you know about pocket change.